Aloha stood in the middle of the living room she grew up in, the scent of old wood and memories filling the air. Her father sat at the head of the family table, a grave look on his face, while her sister, Naya, smirked with folded arms. Then came the words that felt like a knife through her chest. "We've decided to give this house to your sister," her father said calmly. The room went silent. Her mother avoided her eyes. Naya's smirk widened. But Aloha didn't shout, didn't cry. She only smiled, a small knowing smile. Because what they didn't know was that the papers in her bag had already changed everything. Aloha came home after many months away, her heart full of excitement. She had worked hard abroad and finally got promoted at her job. When her parents called for a family meeting, she thought it was to celebrate her success. She even brought small gifts for everyone, smiling as she walked into the familiar house she had helped save years ago. But the moment she sat down, she noticed something strange. Her father's face was serious, her mother looked nervous, and her younger sister Naya sat on the couch with a proud little smirk. Aloha waited for them to speak, thinking maybe there was some big family news. Then her father cleared his throat and said slowly, "Aloha, we've decided to give this house to your sister." For a moment, the world around her went quiet. Aloha blinked, not sure she heard right. "What?" she whispered, her voice barely steady. Her father looked calm as if he had said something normal. "Naya needs stability," he continued. "She's planning to start her family soon. You already have a good job and live abroad. You can take care of yourself." Aloha stared at him, unable to believe it. This was the same house she had sent money for every month. The same house she helped save when the bank was about to take it. She had gone hungry some nights so her parents wouldn't lose it. And now they were just giving it away to Naya, who had never paid a single bill. Naya crossed her legs and smiled wider, pretending to look innocent. "You should be happy for me, sister," she said softly. "You have everything. Let me have something too." Aloha felt her stomach twist, but she didn't shout or argue. She looked at her parents, people she loved more than anything, and all she saw was betrayal. They didn't even meet her eyes. For a few seconds, she thought of all the sacrifices she had made, all the love she had given, and how easily they erased it with one decision. Then slowly, she forced a small smile. "I see," she said quietly. "If that's what you've decided, then so be it." Everyone thought she had accepted it, but inside something shifted. She knew something they didn't, something that would change everything very soon. Aloha sat there, still trying to understand what she had just heard. Her father's voice sounded calm, almost too calm as he repeated, "Naya deserves stability, Aloha. You already have enough." Her mother nodded beside him, her hands folded on her lap like she agreed completely. Aloha felt a sting in her chest, as if someone had pulled the floor out from under her. She looked at them, hoping it was a joke. "Enough?" she asked softly. "Do you mean the same enough I worked 10 years for? The same money I sent every month to pay this house's mortgage when you were struggling?" Her father sighed and avoided her eyes. "You were only helping, my daughter. You know family helps each other." Aloha almost laughed, but it wasn't funny. Her voice trembled as she spoke again. "Helping? I paid almost every bill here. I sent money for the repairs, for the taxes, everything. And you're giving the house to Naya because she deserves stability?" Naya leaned back with a smirk. "You always say you love your independence," she said lightly. "You're successful, you travel, you have your own life. Why are you jealous of me now?" Aloha's hands clenched under the table, but she kept her face calm. Her cousin, Gani, sat quietly in the corner, watching everything. He had grown up with Aloha, knew her struggles, knew how much she had done for this family. His eyes met hers, full of disbelief and silent anger on her behalf. He finally spoke. "Uncle, with all due respect, Aloha is the one who paid most of the mortgage. Without her, this house would have been gone long ago." Her father waved a hand. "She helped because she could. But it's still the family house. I have the right to decide what happens to it." That sentence hit her harder than anything. "The family house," she repeated quietly. She realized then that all her sacrifices had meant nothing to them. They didn't see her as a daughter who gave everything. They saw her as a provider, someone who would always give, no matter how unfairly she was treated. Her mother tried to soften things, saying, "Aloha, your sister has been through a lot. She needs security. You'll understand one day." Aloha nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in her throat. Maybe I will, she said. But inside her heart had turned cold. Gani caught her eye again, and gave a small nod. He could see it too, the quiet fire starting to build inside her. She wasn't going to beg or fight. Not yet. She was going to let them believe they had won. Because soon, everything was going to change. After the meeting, Naya followed Aloha into the kitchen. Her steps light and full of pride. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms with that same proud smile she always wore when she thought she had won. You should be happy for me, sister, she said sweetly. Not everyone gets to be the chosen one. Aloha froze for a second, holding her cup of tea. Chosen one, she repeated quietly. Naya shrugged. Well, yes, Dad said I deserve stability. You already have everything. A good job, a car, a life abroad. You're independent. I'm not like you. I need this house more than you ever did. Aloha stared at her, trying to control her expression. Inside, she felt her blood boil. How could Naya talk like this? This was the same sister who never worked a full month in her life, who depended on everyone for everything, who always got away with being spoiled. And now she stood there, acting like she earned it all. Aloha took a deep breath. Naya, you know I paid most of the mortgage, right? You remember those years when Mom and Dad couldn't pay the bank? Naya rolled her eyes. Oh please. You helped, sure. But you didn't do it for ownership, did you? You always said you were doing it for family. Don't act like you were some hero. Her words cut deep. Aloha felt her throat tighten, but she didn't respond. Naya smirked again, tilting her head. You should be grateful, really. You get to live your big fancy life abroad while I take care of the home here. It's fair. Aloha wanted to laugh at how blind her sister was. Fair. That word had no meaning in this house anymore. But instead of arguing, she smiled faintly and said, You're right, Naya. It's fair. Naya blinked, surprised that Aloha didn't fight back. See? I knew you'd understand, she said proudly, already turning to leave. Oh, and don't worry. I'll take good care of the place. Aloha watched her go, her hands trembling slightly as she placed the cup down. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was control. Arguing would only give them more power. She knew now that her family had already chosen sides, and she wasn't one of them. But they had made one mistake. They underestimated her. As she looked around the house, memories flooded back. Every late-night call from her parents begging for help. Every transfer she made to keep the house from being taken. Every sacrifice she made while they called her the lucky one. A small, calm smile appeared on her face. They thought they had taken everything from her. But they didn't know that the real game had already begun. And she was the one holding all the cards. That night, Aloha couldn't sleep. She sat on her old bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, her heart heavy with old memories that refused to fade. Every corner of that house held a story, her story, one that everyone seemed to have forgotten. She closed her eyes, and the past came rushing back. She saw herself 5 years ago, younger and full of hope. Her parents had called her one evening, panic in their voices. The bank was about to take the house because the mortgage hadn't been paid for months. Her father's business had failed, and her mother's small shop couldn't cover the debt. Aloha had just started a new job then. She didn't have much, barely enough for rent and food. But when she heard the fear in her father's voice, she didn't think twice. She sent her entire savings that night. It wasn't enough, but she kept sending more month after month, sacrificing her comfort so her parents wouldn't lose their home. She remembered skipping meals, wearing old clothes, and walking long distances to save transport money. Also, her parents could keep the house. Sometimes, she cried herself to sleep, but she told herself it was worth it because she was doing it for family. Then came the day the bank finally cleared the debt. Her parents were so happy, and her father told her, You've saved this family, Aloha. He hugged her and promised that one day, she would have her name on the title deed. But when the new papers came, he said, We'll keep it in my name for now, just to make things simple. She trusted him. She always did. Years passed, and Aloha kept sending money, for repairs, for the roof that leaked, for the broken fence, even for Naya's school fees when her parents couldn't pay. Her life abroad wasn't easy, but every time she thought of her family, she pushed herself harder. Now sitting in that same room, she realized how blind she had been. The same people she had saved were now giving the house away like it meant nothing. The title deed that was supposed to be temporary had become her father's power, used against her. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. She wasn't going to cry anymore. That memory no longer made her weak, it made her stronger. She finally saw the truth. Love without respect becomes a burden. In that quiet moment, she made a silent promise to herself. If they could forget her sacrifices so easily, then she would remind them in a way they would never forget. The house she once saved would soon teach everyone in it the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal. The next morning, Aloha woke up with a clear mind. She didn't cry, didn't shout, and didn't complain to anyone. While everyone in the house went on acting normal, she moved quietly, almost invisible, but her thoughts were sharp and steady. Her parents believed she had accepted their decision. Naya believed she had won. But Aloha had already decided to take back what was rightfully hers. This time, not with anger, but with wisdom. After breakfast, she told her mother she needed to go into town to meet an old friend. Her mother nodded without much interest. Naya was busy taking pictures in the living room, calling it her home now. Aloha smiled faintly and left the house. Instead of meeting a friend, she walked straight to the local records office. The place was quiet, filled with old files and the smell of paper. She went to the counter and asked to see property records related to her family's house. The clerk checked her ID and then pulled out a file. As Aloha opened it, her heart beat faster. Every page brought back years of sacrifice, the receipts of her payments, the mortgage clearance letter with her signature, and most importantly, the agreement that had been made years ago when she helped her father pay the debt. The lawyer she had hired back then had added a special clause. A clause that stated if Aloha paid more than 70% of the mortgage, she would automatically become the legal co-owner of the property. At that time, her father had agreed and signed it, thinking it was just a harmless formality. He never imagined that clause would one day mean everything. Aloha smiled softly as she read the line again. She had paid much more than 70%. Legally, that made her the owner. Her lawyer, who had stayed in touch all these years, confirmed it. He met her in a small office nearby, reviewed the documents and told her, "You don't have to fight them. The house is already yours. We just need to file the final transfer to update the title deed." By the end of the day, the papers were done. Quietly, without any argument, without any noise, Aloha had secured what was rightfully hers. The house her family was trying to give away was now legally in her name, and no one in that house had the slightest idea. As she walked back home, she felt a calm strength she hadn't felt in years. She knew what she was doing wasn't revenge, it was justice. They had taken her kindness for weakness, but she had turned her pain into power. When she entered the house that evening, Naya was showing their parents some furniture catalogs for her new home. Aloha smiled, helped set the table, and spoke kindly, as if nothing had changed. Inside, she was at peace. The game was over before it even began, and only she knew it. A few days later, the house was full of noise and laughter. Naya had decided to throw a small party to celebrate what she proudly called a new beginning. She invited her friends, a few neighbors, and even some relatives. Balloons hung by the front door, music played softly, and food filled the table. Everyone seemed happy, except Aloha, who sat quietly in the corner, her calm eyes taking in everything. Naya moved around the room with a wide smile, greeting people and showing them the house like she had built it herself. "This is my living room now," she said proudly to one of her friends. "My parents finally decided it's time I have something of my own." Her friends clapped and congratulated her, calling her lucky. Naya glowed even more. Her parents were no different. Her father stood beside her, smiling proudly as he told a guest, "We wanted to make sure our younger daughter has a place to call home. Aloha is doing well abroad. She doesn't need to worry about these things." Her mother nodded in agreement, happy to see the joy on Naya's face. Aloha sat at the edge of the room, holding a glass of water. Every word they said reached her ears clearly, but she didn't react. Her expression stayed calm, almost unreadable. Inside, she felt no anger, just quiet satisfaction. They were celebrating something that didn't belong to them anymore. They just didn't know it yet. Gani arrived a little later, and went straight to Aloha. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "More than okay," she whispered back. He looked at her, confused by her calmness, but said nothing. He trusted her. As the evening went on, Naya raised her glass and made a small speech. "I just want to thank my parents for trusting me with this beautiful home," she said proudly. "And to my sister Aloha, who's always been my role model, thank you for understanding that it's my turn now." The room filled with claps and cheers. Aloha took a small sip of her water and smiled. "You're welcome, Naya," she said softly, her voice steady. Her parents looked at her with relief, thinking she had finally accepted the decision. People started taking pictures, posing in front of the house, laughing and talking about how beautiful everything was. Naya's friends kept saying, "You're so lucky, Naya," and she nodded proudly. Aloha quietly excused herself and stepped outside for a moment. She stood near the gate, watching the warm lights from the windows, and breathed deeply. The house looked peaceful from the outside, but she knew the peace wouldn't last long. The truth was already written in legal papers, waiting to reach them at the perfect moment. When she walked back in, no one noticed the knowing smile on her face. She joined them again, as calm as ever, sipping her water. Everyone thought she was just being quiet, but she was really just waiting for her moment to come. The party was in full swing. Laughter filled every corner of the living room as people ate, drank, and congratulated Naya over and over. She was glowing with pride, standing near her parents, telling everyone how she would redecorate her home soon. Her mother fussed around with snacks while her father kept shaking hands, smiling at every compliment. Aloha sat quietly on the sofa, holding her half-finished drink. She listened to the noise, smiling politely whenever someone looked her way. No one noticed how calm she was, how steady her eyes were as they followed the movements in the room. She wasn't angry anymore. She was simply waiting. Then, just as Naya started another round of photos with her friends, the sound of footsteps approached the gate. A man in a black suit entered the compound, carrying a large brown envelope. He looked serious and professional. Everyone turned to look at him, confused. He walked straight toward Aloha. "Miss Aloha?" he asked in a clear voice. Aloha stood slowly. "Yes," she replied. He handed her the envelope and said, "Delivery for you, ma'am. Please sign here." Naya frowned immediately. "For her? Are you sure?" she asked. The man nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Miss Aloha." Aloha calmly took the pen, signed the paper, and accepted the envelope. The whole room went quiet now. The music was still playing softly, but no one was paying attention to it. Naya and her parents watched her closely, curiosity written all over their faces. "What is it?" her father asked. Aloha didn't answer right away. She carefully opened the envelope, taking her time. Inside were several neatly arranged documents. Her fingers moved slowly, turning each page until she found the one she was looking for. The seal of the land registry gleamed at the top. Naya stepped closer, nervous but trying to hide it. "Why would you get documents delivered here?" she asked, her voice slightly sharp. Aloha looked up, her face calm. "You'll see," she said softly. She held the papers for a moment, then closed them gently. Her mother frowned. "Aloha, is something wrong?" Aloha shook her head lightly. "No, Mama. Everything is perfectly fine." Gani, who had been sitting quietly near the door, caught her eye and gave a small nod. He already knew what those papers meant. Aloha placed the documents neatly on the table beside her glass and sat down again. "I was going to wait until later," she said in a calm, steady tone. "But since we're all together tonight, I suppose now is as good a time as any." Naya's smile faded a little. Her father exchanged glances with her mother. The air in the room shifted. Everyone's laughter had stopped. All eyes were now on Aloha and the mysterious envelope that had just arrived. The one that was about to change everything. Everyone in the room stared at Aloha, waiting for her to explain. The laughter that had filled the air only moments ago had completely disappeared. Naya looked uneasy, glancing at the brown envelope on the table, as if it might hold something dangerous. Aloha stayed silent for a few seconds, letting the tension grow thicker. Then she stood up slowly, holding the papers in her hands. She looked around the room, her gaze calm and steady. "I was going to wait until after dinner," she said softly. "But since we're all here, maybe the new owner should speak." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Everyone froze. Her father frowned in confusion. "New owner? What are you talking about, Aloha? You mean Naya, right?" Aloha shook her head gently. "No, Papa. Not Naya." Naya laughed nervously. Oh come on Aloha. Stop joking. This house is mine now. Everyone knows that. The courier, who was still standing by the door, cleared his throat politely and said, Actually ma'am, this property was sold 3 weeks ago. The new ownership transfer is already completed. The room went silent again, even heavier than before. Her father's face went pale. Sold, he repeated slowly. What do you mean sold? Who sold this house? Aloha looked at him directly, her voice calm and clear. You'll have to ask the new owner. Then she picked up the house keys that had been lying on the table and, without hesitation, slid them across to Gani. The small metallic sound of the keys against the wood made everyone's eyes widen. Gani looked surprised but didn't speak. Her father's mouth opened, but no words came out. Aloha, what did you do? He finally managed to say. Aloha smiled softly. I did what any rightful owner would do. I sold what was mine. Her mother gasped, covering her mouth. Yours? But this house belongs to the family. Aloha nodded slowly. Yes, Mama. And I am part of that family. The part that paid for it, the part that saved it, the part that was forgotten. Naya's face turned red. You can't do that. You can't just sell the house. Aloha looked at her sister with calm eyes. I already did. She turned to Gani, who was still holding the keys awkwardly. Take good care of it, she said softly. You'll manage it better than anyone else. Her father sank into a chair, his voice trembling. How could you do this to us? Aloha's expression stayed gentle but firm. I didn't do anything to you, Papa. I just stopped letting you do everything to me. The room stayed silent. Everyone looked at Aloha as if seeing her for the first time. She had taken back her power without shouting, without anger, just calm truth. And in that silence, they all realized she had won. The room turned into complete chaos. Naya's laughter, which had filled the house just minutes ago, disappeared instantly. Her face went pale, and her hands shook as she pointed at Aloha. You're lying. This can't be true, she shouted. Their parents stood up from their chairs, voices rising with anger and confusion. Aloha, what is the meaning of this? Her father demanded. You can't just sell this house, it's ours. But Aloha didn't raise her voice. She stood there quietly, her calmness cutting through their noise like a knife. No, Papa, she said softly. It was never yours to sell. You forgot. I'm still the rightful owner. I only let you stay here because I trusted you. Her mother's face twisted in disbelief. You mean you sold this house? Without telling us? Aloha nodded slowly. Yes. I sold it legally, with my name still on every document. I tried to help you before, but you treated me like I didn't matter. So I decided to take control of what's mine. Naya shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. You can't do this, Aloha. Where will we go? What will people say? Aloha looked at her sister with a small, almost sad smile. People will say what they always do. But this time their words won't hurt me. Her father slammed his hand on the table. We raised you. We gave you everything, he shouted. Aloha met his eyes firmly. You raised me, yes. But when I struggled, you turned your backs on me. When I begged for help, you laughed. I built myself up again alone. And now, I'm finally free. For a moment, no one spoke. Only the quiet sound of Naya's crying filled the air. Aloha continued, her voice calm but strong. The money from the sale wasn't wasted. I bought a new home. A beautiful one, far from here. A place where no one controls me or reminds me of how I wasn't enough. I've already moved my things there. Her mother's lips trembled. You planned all this? Aloha nodded again. Yes. Every step. Everyone turned to Gani, who had been silent until now. He cleared his throat. I'll be managing this property, he said respectfully. It's part of my new business venture. Aloha trusted me to handle it. Her father looked at him in shock. You too, Gani? Gani lowered his eyes. Sir, I only agreed because she deserved this chance. She's worked too hard. To keep being treated like she's nothing. Naya slumped into a chair, tears rolling down her face. Her parents stared at each other, regret washing over them. They realized too late what they had done, how their greed and pride had cost them everything. Aloha picked up her bag, looked around the room one last time and said quietly, I hope one day you'll understand that love isn't control. Then she walked out, peaceful, strong, and free at last. Aloha walked down the hallway slowly, her suitcase rolling behind her. The same floor she once cleaned for her parents now echoed under her calm steps. Her father rushed after her, his voice shaking. "Aloha, wait. You could have told us," he cried, his hands trembling as if trying to hold on to something already gone. She stopped at the doorway and turned around. Her eyes were calm but cold, the kind of calm that comes after years of pain and silence. "I did tell you," she said quietly. "Many times. But you never listened. You gave my home away, yet it stopped being yours long ago." Her mother stood behind her father, tears forming in her eyes, but still too proud to speak. Naya, sitting on the couch, stared blankly at the floor, unable to face her sister. The laughter, the pride, the noise of victory that had filled the house just an hour ago was gone. Only silence remained, heavy and uncomfortable. Aloha looked around the house one last time. Every wall, every piece of furniture carried a memory. The nights she stayed up paying bills, the mornings she left early to work double shifts just to keep this house standing. And now, the same people she once protected had thrown her out of her own home without a thought. But this time it didn't hurt. Not anymore. The pain had turned into peace, the peace of knowing she finally took her power back. Her father's voice broke through the silence again, softer now, almost begging. "We made mistakes, Aloha. But this is your family." Aloha's lips curved into a faint smile, but her eyes stayed distant. "Family isn't about blood, Papa. It's about respect. And when respect dies, love doesn't survive either." She turned toward the door, her hand on the handle. The air inside felt heavy, but the breeze outside called to her, open, free, and full of promise. Gani was waiting by the car, engine running. He opened the door for her, giving her a small nod, not as a cousin, but as someone who had witnessed her quiet strength all along. Aloha stepped inside, her suitcase beside her. Through the window, she saw her parents still standing frozen in the doorway, their faces pale with regret. The house behind them was no longer theirs, not legally, not emotionally, not in any way that mattered. As the car began to move, Aloha looked out the window, her eyes on the road ahead. A small smile crossed her face, and in a whisper only she could hear, she said, "Some gifts aren't meant to be given, they're meant to be earned." The car turned the corner, and for the first time in years, Aloha felt light. She wasn't running away, she was finally moving forward.